Hello friends and welcome to another episode of Ontario Permaculture. I'm Misty Murph'Ariens. It's summer here on the farm, and because we're a permaculture farm, we're in full thick of harvest season. Every day we're needing to harvest more things from the food forests, from the pastures and the meadows to keep everything from competing with each other, for getting full productivity, and for keeping all of the grazing spaces in full nutrient and full productivity. I think for most gardeners and farmers, weeding is a necessary evil, a bit of a chore, and we all do it because we know that if you don't reduce the competition somewhat in a garden, you're definitely going to reduce the yields on the produce that you're growing. However, I find that it's much more motivating to go and gather weeds when you have a happy audience ready to receive them. Hello, ma'am. What? Here you go, young lady. All for you too. Since most of the volunteers that grow within our garden spaces do actually have uses, I prefer to think that we don't have any weeds at all, but we have a variety of yields which need to be harvested in order to be cashed in, so to speak. Feeding the creatures weeds is a wonderful way to bond with them, to take time as a gardener or farmer to pause and slow down and really appreciate what you have. I mean, mucking out and moving to pasture and getting the milking done, these all are rewarding in and of themselves. But if you take time to feed some weeds to your creatures, you can bond with them. You can get really close. And I think if I had perfect pastures, which I could set the creatures out on, I wouldn't get nearly this close to my cows. And here I get a nice little tickle from a bull's whiskers. I mean, how does it get more magical than that? As I mentioned, we don't have conventional pastures. Presently, we don't own any fenced field areas, so instead we lead the cows out to unused meadow spaces between farmer fields via long ropes, and we tie the ropes to the trees in each of the zones so that the cows can graze a semicircle in a spot. Each grazing day, the spot is moved slightly to make best use of all the grass. The benefit to this is that when they intensively eat down one patch, it puts the grass back into its maximum productivity. If they eat everything in one area and then they move to the next spot the next day, there's more zones that they can eat and there's less things that they'll leave behind because they just prefer them. This is known as management-intensive grazing or mob grazing, and we mostly learned about it through reading the author Joel Salatin, whose works are fantastic and highly recommended. But we have taken another approach based on the resources we had. Given factors like the climate crisis and fuel scarcity and fuel use adding to the climate crisis, I would really love to see grazers brought back for maintaining the various lawns that seem to be desired in Western society. There's so much more value that can be got out of these spaces, and they're part of a closed loop. So animals are important on the land. They are a necessary part of the fertility and the life cycle, and there are many more ways to graze animals than private ownership. I would submit that lots of young people would really enjoy moving animals from pasture to pasture, and I think a lot of pedestrians moving through rural and suburban places would be delighted to see herds moving along the hedgerow. On a productive small farm, every bit of food value counts. So when I'm weeding the garden, I like to weed right to the cows. Our delightful Minnie-moo here knows that, and she is happy to come over and spend some time visiting with me as I weed out my garden. Benefit of that is I don't have to haul away stuff to the compost pile. The compost pile comes over to me. Not only that, the compost that comes from her manure is of a far greater value than just composting green things alone, and she does the turning for me. Of course, she's turning all this feed that I'm giving her into lovely milk with which we make yogurt and cheese and have many delightful meals. And as I'm picking the things from the garden, I know what I'm giving her. I know these are all very nutrient dense medicinal herbs, and I can give her specific herbs that will help her to be more healthy and productive. Overall, I'm very pleased to have cows as my primary lawnmowers. They add enormously to the productivity of the farm, and they really keep me on track with my weeding. So of course we haven't just got the cows for tending to the grass areas, we've also got the horses. Their paddock is right next to the food forest, so it is an easy thing to just pull a weed here and there and feed it to the ponies. They also enjoy those things that are going a little bit older in the food forest, like the daylilies at the end of their leaf season, and they don't mind if it's got a bit woody. Not having horns as the cows do, the horses are a bit easier to fence, and therefore they have a couple of fenced-in paddocks. They are in charge of grazing our front yard, which is also the playground. And one upshot to that is that you can have princess pony rides when they are out grazing. I know these princesses definitely prefer this kind of lawnmower. This we call our horse forest. It's a silviculture pasture for the horses, and it is a place that hasn't got the best grass of all the places, but gives them space to run and trot around when they're not just foraging for delicious things to eat. There's hardly anything I find more peaceful than the sight of horses grazing pleasantly in a forested area. The ponies are not just lawnmowers, though. They're more like our weed eaters. We can take them out on lead ropes and bring them to places that need grazing down, that need being in a tight space and being savvy of pathways. So for those areas along the driveway or through the food forest that need a little bit more finesse, we bring the ponies out. When the two of us take the ponies together, we call them a grazing-date-walk, and I find it a really nice way to all spend time together. Without a doubt, this takes more effort and involvement than simply bringing out the lawnmower or the weed eater, but I find it a good opportunity to work on my horsemanship and spend time with my creatures. Just as taking the cows out to pasture by ropes, this way of working with the horses really helps us develop the ground skills and the familiarity that make them really pleasant to be around and quite good when we're working them in draft or riding on their backs because they're already used to being handled in this way. Imagine how the suburban landscape would be different if there were paddocks instead of lawns and ponies made their way door to door, grazing a yard each day and making their way around the neighborhood. In the winter time, they could be stabled in the public park where everyone could have sleigh rides. Ah, yes, just imagine. Thank you so much for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. And thank you so much to everyone who likes and shares our videos. Thank you to all of our subscribers. And thanks so much to our financial supporters on Patreon, GoFundMe, and all the ways that you show your support. We really appreciate you. Until next time. On and
Give a brother his space. Okay, okay.